Good Shabbos, everyone. So let's give a big welcome, a round of applause to all of our precious grandparents that are here with us this evening. Look at this crowd tonight. Maybe we should do Grandparent Shabbat every week. It's wonderful to see so many of our grandparents. And as I see you and as I had a chance to greet many of you before services, I see the pride that you have having the opportunity to bring your grandchildren here this evening. But you know, as a grandparent, that pride that you have for your children and your grandchildren continues. That love that you have probably only strengthens as the years go by. But you may not even realize, according to the Jewish tradition, it's not just about having pride and love, but your job, what you did for your children, also continues for your grandchildren. And that job is to teach your children and your grandchildren about Judaism. In fact, the Torah tells us, teach your children and your grandchildren. And the rabbis of the Talmud say the Torah is specifically speaking to grandparents. Grandparents who may think their job is done. You may think your job's done. But I'm sorry to tell you tonight that it may be even more important as a grandparent. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, Rabbi, that all sounds good, but I thought my job was done. I taught my children about Judaism. Why do I have to teach my grandchildren? And what can I do to teach my grandchildren? It's up to my kids now. And I don't even know that much about Judaism. I love it. I love coming to Beth Yeshurun. I support the community. But how can I, as a grandfather or grandmother, teach my grandchildren to love their Judaism, to have pride in their Judaism? How can I give them any knowledge of their Jewish faith? Tonight I want to tell you that you can have a major effect on that love and pride and knowledge that your grandchildren have about their Judaism. And I know you can because of the experience I had growing up. In fact, looking back at my childhood, yes, my mother and father and the teachers I had a big effect on me. But one of the people that also had a major impact on my Judaism was my grandfather named Max Schiff. May he rest in peace. My grandfather lived and grew up in Oklahoma, and he loved Sooner football. And you may think to yourself, how in the heck could someone who loved the Sooners impact a rabbi's Judaism? But he did. And let me tell you how he did it. It wasn't that he knew a lot about Judaism, but I remember so many conversations I would have with them when I would travel up to Duncan, Oklahoma, that small town where he lived and raised my mother and her brother and sister. And undoubtedly, every trip that we took with him, or every time we visited Duncan, or he visited my childhood home in Dallas, we always spoke about Israel or some aspect of Jewish life, and I could see the pride that he had for his Judaism. But it wasn't just about the words that he would share with me. More importantly, it was about the actions he took. I remember so often, many times throughout my childhood, I would hear my mom say, Brian, don't complain about that 15-minute ride to synagogue. When I was growing up in Duncan, Oklahoma, every Sunday, my dad would drive me and my brother and my sister from Duncan, Oklahoma, an hour and a half away to Oklahoma City so I could go to religious school. He'd wait there at the synagogue and then afterwards drive us an hour and a half back. There was no one to carpool from Duncan, Oklahoma to Oklahoma City. It was all up to my grandfather and grandmother. But it was that dedication that he continued to have. He may not have known a lot, but he always showed his commitment to his Judaism. And I often saw him, if there was any needy Jew, and there were at the time about 30 Jews in Duncan, or if there was a needy Jew in Oklahoma City, my grandfather found a way to give. And my grandfather wasn't wealthy. He wasn't rich, but he was rich in that love and pride of Judaism. And I often saw him do it. And the icing on the cake, years later, when I had the blessing of going on March of the Living, when I went to Poland to visit the sites and the concentration camps where my grandmother, his wife, of 40 plus years, where she lost her family and where she survived the camps. And when I marched in the Living, when I had the chance to go, my grandfather came with me. And that's a trip I will always cherish. and a trip that I'll always remember. And then, learning after that trip, my grandfather decided to pull as much money as he could to dedicate a part of the library, in the public library in downtown Oklahoma City. He dedicated a part of it to my grandmother for Holocaust studies. And you could still go to that large library in downtown Oklahoma City, and there's a whole wing there named after my grandmother, done by my grandfather. And the books you find on the shelves deal with the Jewish faith and with Holocaust studies. I lost my grandfather 2 years ago when he was age 93. But what he did for me and how he impacted my Judaism will stay with me for a lifetime. He was one of the people that convinced me to become a rabbi. And I share this with you this evening to remind all of you, all of our proud Sabbas and Savtas that are with us this evening, no matter how much you know about Judaism, no matter who you are, no matter your background, you can have a major impact on your grandchildren, no matter how old they are. You can make a great Jewish difference. And so tonight, please continue to remember that so that we can ensure that your grandchildren will have their own Jewish grandchildren one day in the future. Tonight, what a blessing it is to see so many people are here, to see so many of our precious grandchildren that are here, and to have our choirs, our combined choirs, our Zamarnim, our religious school choir, combined with our day school choir. And this evening, on this very special Grandparent Shabbat, they have a very special grandparent song that they'd like to share with you, that you can now find in your Shabbat announcements, entitled The Grandparent Song. So now I'm going to ask if our choir members have their grandparents here. I'm going to ask you to go to your grandparents if they're here this evening. And I'm going to ask our grandparents to rise with their grandchildren. And we're going to give all our grandparents a chance to bless their grandchildren on this Shabbat. Now, many of us are familiar with the parents' blessings, but the first time the parents' blessing was done when Jacob blessed his grandchildren, Ephraim and Manasseh, at the end of the book of Breshit in the Torah. So this evening, we want to give our grandparents a chance to bless their grandchildren. And as they place their hands on the heads of their grandsons, we say, Yesimcha Elohim ke Ephraim ke Manasseh. May God bless you like Ephraim and Manasseh and all the wonderful Jewish grandsons of our tradition. And let us say, Amen. And for all of our granddaughters, we place our hands on their heads and we say, Yesimach Elohim ke Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. May God bless you like Sarah, Becca, Rachel, and Leah and all the wonderful granddaughters of our tradition. And let us say, Amen. And please remain standing now as the cantor sings a song that really in many ways symbolizes that love and that continuation of our Jewish tradition from generation to generation.
L'dor vador, l'dor vador, l'dor vador, nakid God lecha, ulenetzach netzachim, ulenetzach netzachim, kedushatcha nakdish.
From generation to generation, and let us say, Amen. Now you can give him a big hug and kiss.